Ikea are about to sell entire houses, and I've actually been to Sweden. I went a few months ago, made a film for breakfast and had a look inside one. A lot of the customers who are going to be coming along today to sign up won't have actually seen one, they just buy them off plan. But it's not as simple as just walking in and buying a house. From concrete foundation to fully fitted flats in just 4 days. Is Bukluk one of the answers to Britain's chronic housing shortage? Emma and her boyfriend Craig hope so. They've been looking to buy for a year because things are getting just a little bit crowded at Craig's parents'.
I like the concept overall, the design, and I think there's a really good chance of actually getting a IKEA house as opposed to getting social housing or getting on the first rung of the property ladder by buying privately.
I like the design of them, the IKEA design, smart and modern, and I think to get a house like that, anywhere else you're paying too much.
You've probably got an image in your head right now of couples like Craig and Emma coming out of IKEA with a house on a trolley in flat-pack boxes. But it doesn't work like that. You actually buy them ready-built on this site, which is by Gateshead International Stadium. Potential buyers will actually be vetted in interviews, with priority going to first-time buyers earning under £35,000 a year. The catch? Well, you can only sell them on through one company, and only to people in the same boat. I know what you're thinking. We've been here before. The post-war prefabs were only meant as a short-term solution, plugging the gaps left by bombs. Modern house designers like Wayne Hemingway will tell you we've come a long way since then.
I mean, quick in the 1940s meant cheap and nasty in many cases. Today, it shouldn't mean that. We've got the technology, we've got modern factories, and it should mean solid, dependable, and different. And there's no reason to poo-poo the idea.
Bukluk prices start at £100,000, which is by no means the cheapest you'll find around here. The first owners should be moving in after New Year. This is where customers are going to come in to sign up. Let's have a look at this vetting process. You fill out this form. You have to tell them about the people who live with you. And when you go inside, there's questions about your income. And there's questions like, please write down the total amount of savings you have. So this is going to be quite a stringent vetting process. Incidentally, if demand is too high, what they're planning to do is have some kind of independent lottery. So they'll have all of the people who fit the criteria, then literally pull your name out of a hat. So that's how you get your house.
Now well, there, Richard, thanks very much.
Excuse me, Richard, but Mike Hinson Evans says the native name in Sweden and Denmark is Ikea.
Yeah, but Richard...
Does he now?
I have looked on the official BBC pronunciation guide.
Yes.
And we are supposed to say Ikea.
Oh, well.
I think that settles it.
Right, we win.
I will always bow to a computerised pronunciation guide. Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Richard, thanks very much. 22 minutes past 7. First, we had the Brown bounce. Now we've got the Cameron comeback. The latest opinion polls out this morning suggest the Tories' conference in Blackpool has helped them claw back much of the Labour lead.
What does this mean for the chances of an early election then? Well, Professor John Curtis joins us from Glasgow, and he's the man who looks through all the figures and then makes some sense of them. So you get a Brown bounce. Good morning, John. Then you get a Cameron comeback. But how long does that last for, and where are we really?
Well, the truth is it doesn't have to last very long for it to be the case that Gordon Brown will decide not to go to the country. Certainly the chances of our having an election have diminished quite substantially overnight as a result of these polls. Now, it may well be true that these polls perhaps exaggerate the Conservatives' position in much the same way as the polls that were conducted immediately after the Labour conference perhaps exaggerated Labour's position. But even so, even on an optimistic reading of these polls, perhaps in the end, when everything settles down, we're back to the 5 or 6 point lead that Gordon Brown had before the conference season started. That, in truth, I think, in my view, is not sufficient for him to want to go to the country, because on those kind of figures, he cannot be sufficiently sure of getting a majority greater than 66, which is what Labour got in 2005 and which he would have to achieve if he's going to justify having an early election. So I think, in truth, even on the most optimistic reading of these polls, it's now much less likely that Gordon Brown will announce on Monday or Tuesday that he's going to go to the country than was previously the case.
Right. On the other hand, if you're looking at it from a Labour point of view, looking for good news, Labour's share is holding up. That's important, isn't it?
Well, it's true the Labour Party is running at around 40% of the vote. It's also true, if you take the average of all of these polls, that the Labour Party would probably still win an election if these opinion polls were to transpire in a ballot box. The problem is that the kind of majority that we now might be thinking of for Labour is more like 50 rather than 100. That's too low for Gordon Brown to get his personal mandate. That's therefore really why I think this election is not probably there. It is true, however, certainly the party, as it were, that comes out of these polls least well is the Liberal Democrats, running at around 15%. If indeed Gordon Brown decides not to call an election, they will certainly, I think, be mightily relieved. They may for once be quite happy to see the Conservatives have a bit of a revival in order to be helpful to themselves.
Yeah, the Conservatives really challenging Gordon Brown to call an election, saying, you know, is he going to bottle it? But to be honest, would having an election now really help them? Because according to your figures, they'd still lose.
Well, I think the truth is that the more loudly the Conservatives call for an election over the next couple of days, the less likely it's going to happen. But you're absolutely... they're doing this because obviously they're hoping now that Gordon Brown will back down. They'll be able to claim something of political victory. But the truth is, although Gordon Brown may not be able to achieve what he wants in an early election, I think, frankly, neither can the Conservatives. On these kinds of figures, yet the possibility that Gordon Brown might lose his majority by the end of election campaign if Labour's lead were to diminish yet further, that now becomes a possibility, and that's one of the reasons Gordon Brown may not now go to the country. But in truth, remember, if the Conservatives are going to win an overall majority, they, on the conventional calculations, need something like a 10 or 11-point lead in the opinion polls. We're still a long way away from that. So I think in truth the Conservatives will be glad if there isn't an election now. They will then be needing to work away through the winter to see whether or not they can recover the opinion poll lead that they had before Gordon Brown became Prime Minister, and to put themselves in a position where we might begin to be thinking about the possibility of another Conservative government. That at the moment still doesn't look like a terribly likely prospect.
John Curtis, thank you very much.
Later on in the programme, it's enough to make Robin Hood reach for his trusty bow. Sherwood Forest is under threat. Tim Muffet is there.
Well, legend has it this is the tree under which Robin Hood and his merry men took shelter. But it's feared that this and the other ancient oaks of Sherwood Forest will be gone in 20 years unless a lot of money is raised soon. Campaigners say it can be done, but it needs to be done quickly. Later we'll find out how they intend to do that. But first, the news and the weather where you are.
Good morning from BBC London News. I'm Mike Ramsden. 3 more men have been charged over the fatal shooting of a biker from South London. Jerry Tobin was killed on the M40 as he returned from a bikers festival near Stratford-on-Avon. Warwickshire Police said the men will appear before magistrates this morning. 3 other men have also been charged with murder. Steve Phillips has the travel news this morning and big problems on the Northern Line, Steve.
That's right, yes, Mike. We've got problems on the Northern Line, and now in the last few moments the District Line has been suspended on the Wimbledon branch between Wimbledon Park and Wimbledon Station. That's after a signal failure there. You've got severe delays on the rest of the Wimbledon branch. Also, as you say, the Northern Line High Barnet branch, that's also running with severe delays. That's because of a signal failure at Archway Station. And Southeastern trains, if you're a regular user of Blackheath Station, I should say, you can't use it this morning because of flooding. It is closed. Now, out on the roads, have a look at the M4 on the elevated section this morning. Very heavy going, as you can see, heading out of town, and that's because of a breakdown just near Junction 2 at the Chiswick turn. We've also got queues on the M25 on the clockwise side, usual stretch at Sevenoaks. Mike.
Thank you. An independent inquiry continues today into how the Met responded to a case of harassment against a young father who was later murdered. Peter Woodhams, who was shot dead last year outside his home in Canning Town in East London, had told officers he was being targeted by a local gang months before he was killed. The only 10-metre high diving board in London has closed, leaving more than 40 Olympic hopefuls with nowhere to practice. Crystal Palace Sports Centre closed 3 weeks ago when asbestos was found in the roof. It's due to open again in June next year, but that doesn't help Jessica Williams, who's 13 and competing in the European Championships that month. She and her fellow competitors now have to travel to Sheffield to train.
It's really hard to do all the training and travelling and fitting homework in now because all the travelling hours. We have to travel up to Sheffield quite a lot now to get all the pool training done.
Some of London's most famous statues are getting dressed today. They'll be wearing denim to mark this year's Jeans for Genes Day, organised by a charity that helps children with genetic disorders. Lots of Londoners will be raising money by wearing their own jeans to work. And London's weather with Kirsty McCabe.
Hello there. I think we're in for another pleasant day today, and the weekend doesn't look bad either. So dry with some warm sunshine to come. That's the story for today. Temperatures will be above the average. Might be a little bit chilly first thing, maybe the odd mist or fog patch, but nothing to worry about. Generally, the only thing that's really changing through the day is going to be the cloud that might just roll in from the east. So some hazy sunshine into the afternoon, but with light winds, highs around 16 to 18 Celsius, should feel fairly pleasant. Overnight tonight, I think perhaps just a little bit more cloud around in places, again rolling in from an east.
Very much.